I listen to customers and I try to ask them questions that reveal things about their process. And if they, for example, tell that I've got this specific problem, the actual problem might be something else. Most companies probably they need to listen to customers, but if you would just implement what people are saying, then you would build the worst product for sure.
Hello and welcome back to Off to the Valley, where we explore the journeys of entrepreneurs shaping industries around the globe. I'm your host, Pratik Panda, and today we are joined by Toni Hopponen, the founder of LandingRabbit, a tool designed to help SaaS teams build high converting landing pages with ease. Tony's journey in SaaS entrepreneurship spans over a decade, beginning with his co-founding of Flockler, a platform that helped major brands leverage user-generated content to drive engagement. And after successfully selling it in 2023, Tony has now shifted his focus towards building LandingRabbit. We're going to talk a lot about the acquisition and his new startup, but from his early days in a digital agency to his passion for transforming marketing with real-time social data, Tony's story is one of resilience, growth, and deep commitment to solving real problems. Tony, there's a lot to talk to you about, and I'm super excited that you're here on the show with us.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Great. So let's start with a little bit about yourself, right? Tell us a little bit about your background, your childhood, so that everybody can know a little more about Tony as a person.
Yeah, so I grew up in Finland in a town called Tampere. It's like Manchester in the UK, if you know anything about UK. I was like another ordinary kid in Finland, got the education for free as all the others, and graduated from the university in 2009. That's when I started my career, first in a digital agency, and then later on set up Flockler and now LandingRabbit. But yeah, like a quite ordinary kid from Finland and then moved to UK after setting up my first company in 2011.
Why did you move to the UK?
When I was building the company, we were quite clear from the start that we want to be like born global or build it internationally. Back then, cloud services started to become more popular. So some of the companies out there were buying cloud services. It wasn't as great as it is today. Like today, cloud services are fantastic, like from developers' point of view, but it still made it possible for anyone basically build in, for example, in Finland and then service customers throughout the world. And I thought that's a great opportunity and we can actually build something that we sell online and globally. London was sort of like a good choice for European back then. Obviously now there's been a Brexit after, but back then for a European, it allowed me to just pack my backpack and go to UK, settle here and start my journey. Also, during the same time, there was a big investment from the government to attract more startups and talent to the UK. That probably helps a lot. So I got introduced to a lot of other startups here in London. They had this concept of Silicon Roundabout to challenge Silicon Valley. Maybe it was a bit too ambitious, but at least it helped quite a bit.
And you've spent a long time in startups now. Do you feel the same way about the ecosystem now in London versus, let's say, if you were to do this now in Finland, do you think something's changed or is London would have been still your preference?
I'd say that from Europeans' point of view, there's a massive change because as a European, I can't, if I would start now in Finland, I would kind of dream of moving here. Then I would need to have a permanent workplace, most likely to get that visa. So I would need to have either a company set up by me, I would need funds to do that, or I would be employed by someone. And then it's obviously difficult to run your own company at the same time. So yeah, times have changed a bit. There isn't necessarily the same sort of like startup wife that there was when I joined here. But at the same time, the startup scene is very different back then when lots of new startups, like if we go back to 2010 and 2011 and so forth, the startup scene was so different. Like people didn't have access to big funding and most companies were bootstrapping and trying to get by with quite a little bit of money. Yeah, it has changed for better as well. But from Europeans' perspective, there's a massive change after Brexit and it's not that easy to move here.
Got it. And talking about bootstrapping, you bootstrapped Flockler to acquisition over 13 years. I want to talk to you about two things. One is, can you recall any key inflection point and you notice that, okay, things are now starting to work, and I think I'm building like a real business?
Yeah, I think there were many phases like that. We felt that, okay, this is now working, but what we were chasing was the sort of like scalable self-service business, and that took a long time to build. So our first was more like a tool for media companies to gather user-generated content. And what we quickly found out that it's gonna be quite hard to scale this business and sell it through online. So the media companies back in 2010, 2011, they needed a lot of assistance when it came to web development and mobile development. So we noticed quite quickly that, okay, if we want to chase that dream of self-serve, this is not going to be it. And then we pivoted quite a few times, tried different things that could work. But when Instagram started growing, that was some sort of a point in our time, in our company, that we realized that actually this platform could scale beyond the media companies, and we could sell this to brands and get brands to gather content from Instagram. So if I give a bit of background, Flockler is a tool that allows customers to gather, for example, mentions of the brand or mentions of a hashtag on social media. And when I was talking about that concept before Instagram was growing, brands were like, oh yeah, we know Twitter would be one, but we're not that interested in Twitter content. Twitter has always been a special place for certain content. But then when Instagram started growing, then all of a sudden travel, e-commerce, many other industries were saying to us that, yeah, it really makes sense to gather some user-generated content. And then we kind of rebuilt the platform in certain ways, that we created like a social proof collection engine for brands and made it self-serve in the end.
So, if I'm hearing you right, there was also this element of external change that happened with Instagram coming in that probably helped you a lot in riding that wave. And you've talked about SaaS ideation also before, and both products that you built are quite different. What is your framework to identify what is a worthy problem to solve?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've been obviously trying quite a few techniques over the past almost 15 years that I've been building products. But the reason one, how I built it was, or how I've kind of approached it, is that I first listed ideas, what I've noticed within my career, what I've noticed within SaaS marketing that do not really work that well. And then after listing them, I kind of used a framework of my own in a way to look at each idea and thinking that, okay, is there a founder fit with this idea? And founder fit meaning that, am I, do my sort of like skill set, does that serve the company better? So giving you an idea, for example, I'd like to create maybe more like a self-serve based business instead of growing sales teams. So that's like part of the founder fit. And then also looking at like, what are the sort of technologies that I could use? What's the sort of domain? Who am I helping with? And so forth. And then I look at each idea and then selected a couple of those to go and find people to interview. And I wasn't interviewing people about the idea itself. I was just interviewing, like, for example, if I'm interested in A/B testing and something related to that, then I'm going to interview the best experts of A/B testing. And for me, ideas are just like part of the process. You need to understand the full workflow of someone else to then get an idea that, is this specific thing worth solving? Like if I'll give you an example of the A/B testing, I was interviewing people that are experts on that, and most of them were saying that, oh, well, the A/B testing, everything else works fine, but it's really hard to find insights from data. So that then tells me that, okay, well, if I would want to build something, then maybe my idea is not that great, because everyone is actually looking for a solution for that data insights bit and so forth. So like, yeah, ideas are just one element. And then when you actually discuss with others and experts, then you find out that are they worth solving? Usually you need multiple rounds of interviews. And after that pre-stage of validating the idea, I usually create some sort of concepts, images, prototypes, and I'll then do another round of interviews, usually 10 to 20 people, and I'll show them the, like, this is the idea, what I'm looking to build. And my only goal is to find out that is this something that people are willing to pay for? And it's not always black and white, because they're only images and prototypes. So the user might not, or the person that I'm interviewing might not know what the actual product then will be, but at least I'll get a sense of the willingness to pay. And yeah, those are the sort of like the steps that when I'm starting something new, I take those steps first before I start building anything or coding anything.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Tony. I want to ask a couple of follow-up questions on that. One is you talked about talking to potential customers, 10, 20 of them, getting those ideas validated and so on. How do you balance listening to customers versus trusting your own instincts as far as the product is concerned? Because sometimes there is this theory that the customer is king and they know what they want. But at the same time, there's been enough evidence to show that for a lot of newer technology, the customer really doesn't know what they want unless they see something, right? So how do you create that balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. I approach it in a way that I listen to customers and I try to ask them questions that reveal things about their process. And if they, for example, tell that I've got this specific problem, the actual problem might be something else. So I just keep asking questions to understand that who are involved when this particular sort of friction point in your workflow happens, or why is it slow to do something? People always say that they don't have time or it's too slow to do a task, but in reality, the problem might be something completely different. And I think what sort of yes, most companies probably they need to listen to customers, but if you would just implement what people are saying, then you would build the worst product for sure. It's more about having that insight that what I want to solve in the first place, what is the problem that I want to solve, and then listening to feedback and then creating your version of how to solve that problem. And then obviously the market will decide and you can interview people that what do they think about the solution that you've built. And as a founder, I think I've accepted it over the years that even if I have a great idea or I think I have a great idea of how to solve it, it's just like one of the millions of ways to solve the same thing. I've always enjoyed, like, for example, Airbnb, which is a great sort of example of solving something that wasn't a problem in the first place. Like nobody had a problem with hotels in a way, and nobody thought that others want to sleep in someone else's bed, rent that out. But yeah, it still works. So like, if you would just ask people that, do you have a problem with this and what would be your solution? They might not have suggested Airbnb as their solution. So yeah, it's a founder's insight plus listening. That's the key, I think.
Sounds good. Tony, one thing that you were talking about founder fit or founder idea, founder market fit. And you mentioned that one of the things for you was not having to build or deal with the sales team. And at Flockler, you did not have a sales team. Can you tell us a little bit more about what made you decide that early on and how did that shape the way the product was built and designed?
Yeah, that shapes the whole thing. Basically, it shapes not only the sales and marketing model, but the whole product as well. I think the easiest way to kind of describe it is that when you have a self-serve solution like Flockler is, and was when I was running it, the main marketing channel might be Google Ads, for example. And when a person sees the Google ad first, then they arrive on a landing page next. And then someday they might sign up for the product, but there might be multiple touch points before they actually sign up for the product. And the big challenge for the whole product and the sales and marketing model is that the landing page, the advert all the messages that you're sending out to people before they sign up, they need to match with the product. So like when you're trying to get customers, in Flockler's case, you're trying to get customers to use it for Instagram hashtag campaigns, then everything you do in marketing needs to really resonate and match with the product, because there won't be someone like me or anyone from the sales team to convince the client and kind of explain why things work in this way. It needs to feel intuitive. So yeah, it's more than just the sales and marketing model when you're running a pure self-service play. But yeah, we had that dream. We saw, I think if I'll give one example, 37 Signals, Basecamp, and others, they've always been like someone that I've been looking at and thinking that I want to build something like that. People just buy it from online. They don't have any sales team. They started with 3 people all over the world. We did the same with Flockler, that we had like remote work from the start. And I wanted to see if that's possible, if we can actually do that. And it wasn't easy to get there, because you really need to nail the product in a way that you need a lot of marketing content, different touch points. But then when the user signs up, they will most likely decide within like 1 minute or so, they will decide if this app is worth pursuing. So you do a lot of work beforehand for that 1 minute or a couple of minutes time frame. And if the product then delivers, the self-service delivers, then the user might continue with you and maybe even pay for the product. But if it doesn't match the expectations, then they don't usually come back, and there's no founder's charm to attract them and get them back to your service. So yeah, it's really different than most sales-led play that often SaaS companies are.
Founder's charm reminds me of a statement you made that founder-led sales doesn't necessarily guarantee future scalability. Can you unpack that a little bit and share more on what you mean when you say that?
Yeah, I think there's a trend right now on LinkedIn that people are saying that founder-led sales and founder-led marketing, that's the solution for all the SaaS companies. And I completely agree when it comes to finding those first customers. And even before, when you're like building it, when you're thinking about it, you can already find people that are thinking similarly about the topics that you're interested in. You can kind of ask questions that, what do you think, would this work for other marketers as well? In my case, when I'm building the new one, I've been asking a lot of questions from others just through the content. But there's a limit to that, at least if you're not paying for the reach, because the algorithms in any social media channel, and especially if you're targeting a niche audience, then it will limit the reach you will have. And at the same time, it's not, for many SaaS services, it's not a credible thing to say that, well, if I'm going to do LinkedIn marketing, then the person will just like find me from there, hit the link to find my solution and buy from there. Usually SaaS companies, the services are bought by a committee of people, and the bigger your sort of service grows, the more the deal size gets bigger on the way, the more difficult it is to just sell it through founder-led marketing and very simple call to actions that you usually need to reach far beyond a certain channel and have much broader marketing or sales motion going on. So yeah, I'm not saying that the founder-led sales and marketing wouldn't work, but I think there's definitely a ceiling to that, how many people you can reach and how many customers you can acquire just by being a founder. And another thing is like, it's hard to scale inside the team as well. So founder has a reason to do, for example, marketing on social media. But if you hire someone for a specific role, they might be working for you like 1 or 2 years, or if they stay long, it's a couple of years, but they might not have the same incentive to kind of talk about your company. They might want to progress their own career instead. So yeah, there's maybe a ceiling to that idea.
Thanks for sharing, Tony. Let's talk a little bit about LandingRabbit, most recent company. What was the ideation process like? What made you stumble on this company and get it started?
When I was running marketing for Flockler, I was doing a lot of landing pages and SEO. So everything in that company, because it was a self-serve company, everything needed some sort of a content piece. And when I was doing Google Ads specifically, I always saw opportunities in the Google Ads data. So the Google Ads data shows, for example, that these are the keywords that people are using when they are clicking your ad. And then I saw that, well, my ad and the landing page are not like a great match at all. So I saw those new opportunities there. But I also noticed that, well, this campaign is not performing at all. And then I was hesitating, is it this landing page or what is it that is not working? And I tried all ways, like all technical ways to make it easier to create landing pages. We had a sort of custom built website, so it was a bit difficult to build pages there, but I was building them together with my team. So I had a designer and developer helping me with them. Then I thought that takes too much time and the ROI of testing a new landing page that might be live for a week is not there when I'm working with the designer and developer. So I tested like tools like Lead Pages and Unbounce and others that allow marketers to create pages on their own and host them on a subdomain. But I wasn't happy with that either because then they were separate from our current website and all things like analytics, cookie banners, different things were just like hard to keep them aligned. Then I was trying another solution, another CMS for our website, but nothing to solve that. I didn't have enough time to really think about it, to be honest. I was just like running the business, doing the marketing. But when I then sold the business, I had more time to focus on other ideas and think what I do when I'm grown up. Then I started investigating first the idea of optimizing and A/B testing. And people that I interviewed, they said that, yeah, A/B testing is great, but I don't have the landing pages. And then I was like, say what? That you don't have the landing pages? And I'm like, I've been struggling with that all my SaaS career. And the next thing I started interviewing others that, hey, have you also struggled with this? And I tried to understand that why people are struggling with landing pages. And sooner or later, I understood that for the CMS like WordPress, Webflow, or any other, that has nothing to do with it. It's the workflow and the process that in many companies is so kind of like async or somehow fragmented that first someone creates content, then another one creates design, and then the third one develops the page. Or if the marketer can do it themselves, not often because not everyone is a multi-talent, but if someone can do it themselves, they still have like a lot of friction in the process because they need to discuss with others. They have the stakeholder feedback. And yeah, it's not easy to pull that off the whole process. So I started thinking that can I do something to help the actual process of building the page, not necessarily hosting pages like the CMS would already do. So yeah, that's how I landed with LandingRabbit.
Yeah, as a marketer myself, I can totally relate to that pain. So you've done a lot of landing pages, you've built a lot of landing pages. Can you share like maybe three high impact elements on landing pages that can improve conversions? Like, or maybe people don't pay a lot of attention to it.
Yeah, I'd say that the number one thing that many people kind of miss because they are so busy working on those landing pages that you really need to think about the customer in that specific case. Like, where is the customer coming from? And what is the search intent? Like, why are they arriving on this page? It's very different to search something on Google and search for a tool versus search for like, what is this? And let alone like being on LinkedIn and then clicking a link and arriving on a page. Like the expectation from customers' point of view is very different. But I think often we marketers are so busy that we just like copy a template and then we just change the kind of ad hoc changes on the page, and the page might not resonate in the best possible way for that use case or that audience or that traffic source. And another a couple of things are that obviously hero element is super crucial. Like if you don't have that very clear why, what, and like a credible explanation that you can actually, solve that problem, then the person is gonna just like click back button and find your competitor. And then the second one that I think people don't necessarily test when they look at their landing pages is that an easy way to find out if my landing page is going to resonate is to read only the titles, like headlines. So the H1 and H2s and H3s, like the titles, and maybe look at some of the images and then try to think that if I only read these main bullets in a way, is this going to describe to the person that what does this service do, why it matters, and is it really how it's gonna perform the service? If that's not clear from just, skimming through the page, then you're going to lose the customer for 100%, because like we often think that if we just place the information on our website, then the person will find out, or they will be clever enough to find out. But then when you think about your own journey, when you're buying any service, whether that's for yourself or for a company, you don't really want to waste any time. You're just like, you're very impatient. You just open the page, and if it doesn't match your expectation, you're going to find 10 other competitors out there that are doing better jobs. So yeah, I think those three, like really thinking the user, whether the user is coming from, what's the expectation, hero section, and then the key titles, headlines, do they communicate the sort of like the one key message or the main message?
Thank you so much to me. Tony, you've been a single founder, solo founder, right? For both of your
Right.
startups?
Right now I've got, and in previous one as well, I had two co-founders, and now I have two co-founders as well. So I've always built I think part of the great startup is sort of like having a combination of skills, not too many people, but a combination of skills, so that if things are not going that great for one reason or another, then there will be someone in the team who can fix that specific issue. So I think that's the sort of key to me when I'm building a company.
Yes, absolutely. I think as I go into my experiences as a founder, I've done one solo and the other with co-founders. When days are good, it doesn't matter. But when you're not having a good time, which is a lot of times in the startup journey, you definitely need at least one or two more people to share those. So yeah, definitely understand that value. Tony, as we come towards the end of the interview, I want to ask you a few sort of rapid fire questions just to keep this light as we wrap it up. What's one SaaS tool you can't live without besides your own?
I think Linear is part of the tools that we use. I use that Flockler as well, and I'm using right now with my team. Another one at Flockler that I really loved using was Intercom. The support, live support was big part of sort of like success. We had a really quick response rate. And the good thing about Intercom, even before this all AI hype, was that they were already able to answer a lot of questions back then automatically. So I would probably pick those two for this podcast at least.
Okay. If you go back to the first year of building Flockler, what's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Oh, that's a great one. Um, I think the first advice, and that's related to the move, like when I moved here in UK, I wasn't sure if I'm gonna make it, meaning that if I can just like confidently walk into a meeting, do the sales and marketing like any other, expert here. We in Finland, we have a great education system and we learn English, but I still hesitated, like from cultural point of view, that Finland and the Finnish culture is very different to UK, let alone like globally. And I hesitated a lot. So I think that would be the first one that I say to that young Tony, that yes, you can just like go on and maybe be a bit more self-confident and brave when discussing with others. But I was lucky that I found opportunities here, and those gave me confidence that I can definitely do it. So yeah, that's for every founder, I think, something that I'll share, that just, go and do things and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Tony. Last one, what's one non-obvious sort of founder superpower that you've developed over time?
I think non-obvious is, I don't know, it's probably related to the mindset difference. And I don't know if it's a superpower in terms of like that no one else would have it. But for me, it's been a big change from starting my company. I was always like creating scenarios that what can go wrong and like what are the risks and so forth. And these days I only think about the positive side of things, like how can I, succeed with this one. And it's different in every decision that you make within that can be a product related decision, marketing related decision, anything really. When you think about it more from okay, if we do this, what is the sort of like the best possible outcome that we can have? You can still acknowledge the fact that it might not work, but you don't always need to kind of build all those what if something goes wrong scenarios, because just changing the mindset towards the positive frees up so much energy to then, push towards that goal and worry a bit less. You've learned through the startup journey that there's so many unexpected things happening around you. You can't control things. You can only control, your own attitude, your own mindset, your everyday work. And pretty much everything else is something that you just have to accept on the way, that either you get those clients, either you find the right product, you get investment, whatever you're chasing, but it's not all in your hands. So yeah, just the positive mindset you can control.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I've always told myself also that every cloud has a silver lining. I keep reminding myself that, especially when you are going through a lot of cloud, don't forget to notice the silver lining.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think on that positive note, I think it's a good time to call it a wrap. Thank you so much, Tony. You've shared so much actionable insight. Very, very helpful. Thank you so much for taking our time.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm going to follow your next episodes for sure.
Thank you so much, Tony. And that wraps up today's episode. Before we sign off, I would like to thank you for your support and thanks for tuning in. If you loved today's episode, then don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. Be kind, be happy, challenge the norm. I'll see you folks again for the next one.